Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to my uncut review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. By the way, if you want more of my comic book related content, you can check out Essential Issues Weekly or the Essential Issues Podcast for my ongoing reactions to weekly releases from DC Comics. But let's talk about Guardians. The synopsis on IMDb says, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe and one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians, if not successful. Okay, I didn't want to do a negative review. I try to avoid things that I'm likely to dislike, but I'd heard some buzz that this movie stood out in quality from recent MCU offerings and also had some dramatic weight here and there. I wasn't expecting that to be the case, but I went in at least open and certainly welcoming to the possibility. There's plenty of negativity on the internet. I try not to add to that, so feel free to move on now with my blessing if it will help you enjoy your day more. That said, I don't have time to review something else for this week's review content that I can be more positive about, so here we go. The script, story, pacing, tone, what's the basic vibe of this thing? It's more Guardians, you know. If you liked 1 and 2, I think you may like this one. Aspects of those movies and the characters grew on me as the rest of the MCU did, but mostly for their association and involvement, connection to the movies that were building up to Endgame and that larger story. This one, again, has situationally disconnected joking throughout that robbed me of any tension or stakes that I might have felt. They give only jokey lip service to fear. And so if I don't believe the characters, are truly concerned about their circumstances, I'm not either. I'm just waiting for the attempted eye candy to be done. Emphasis on attempted and more on that later. Other action scenes have the tension, I feel like, destroyed by the seemingly constant use of pop music to create this ironic contrast that's meant to be funny, but that just fell flat for how overused and predictable it felt to me. That said, there were less than a handful of dramatic moments or scenes that worked, and even made my eyes start to well up, but they didn't feel worth the time I spent watching the rest of the 2.5-hour movie. Comedies and action comedies are usually short with good reason. Jokes need to remain kind of surprising, and if you've got a comedy comedies usually kind of have a central humor vibe that they're using, and when humor becomes predictable and it doesn't surprise you, that's part of the delight of humor, is that it's in some sense unexpected. But when you can kind of see the jokes coming, or they feel kind of repetitive or predictable, then comedies can really outstay their welcome. So they generally, including action comedies, tend to be shorter than other types of movies. And I really think this movie, to work as a comedy, which is, I think, largely what it was, an action comedy to be sure, but a comedy, I think that it should have been 90 minutes to at least be more effective to me. What it offered quickly outstayed its welcome. And as a side note, before moving on, I feel bad for Marvel Comics fans who wanted to see a more capable Adam Warlock. Aside from his introductory scene, he was portrayed, I think, as buffoonish and overly dependent on his mother. If that's a thing, if the character's been kind of reimagined in that way in the comics, Marvel fans, let me know. If not, then Marvel fans, you have my sympathy that this character was arguably ruined on screen. One of many sacrifices on the altar of MCU-branded quote-unquote humor. Okay, let's talk about the performances a bit. Returning cast members, I thought were all solid. Chris Pratt really stands out in one climactic scene where he was allowed to really emote with just ugly crying and tears. It really went to a place, I felt like, on the set where he is like, wow, he went deep. It was kind of edited in such a way, though, that when he was in, there was other accompanying shots where he was interacting with a CG character, where I felt like, oh, he's not in the same place nearly emotionally in his performance in this moment. So I felt like maybe they had a time where they just brought the camera in and probably just let him go deep for a while at this angle. But then other angles that maybe didn't show as much of his face because there was a CG character involved in the scene and stuff. What I did see of his face is oh, he is not in the same space here. This does not feel as realistic and emotionally weighty as the other cuts. And so there was just kind of an inconsistency there, and it's a shame because what he was delivering in those particular shots, I just felt like, wow, he's really going to a deep place, which I know that he can go. He's not just a one-note action action comedy type guy. I've seen him go to these kind of heavier places in some of his non-MCU work. But it was just neat to see that being allowed here. I cared more in that scene, in those shots, than the whole remaining movie combined. Bradley Cooper, who does the voice for Rocket, combined with the animators, I have to give credit to them, also created what I thought was a great dramatic performance moment in Rocket that gave me lesser feels, but still real feels that really stood out compared to the rest of the movie. And I should say that music and cinematography also helped a lot there too. So some good Rocket moments in terms of emotion. As you can tell, it's important to me that there's some emotional weight. It doesn't have to be throughout, but significantly in stories. And that includes comedies at the end of the day, unless they really are the unusual comedy that's striking my funny bone, which is a very, very small, narrow category of comedies. But otherwise, I like to really have some heart in any type of movie or show that I am watching. And so really appreciated those brief moments in Guardians 3. Even Dave Bautista as Drax flexed some emotional acting muscles, unless he was sniffing, salts to help him actually produce tears. Either way, even if he was, it was still a noteworthy performance moment in the scene that I'm thinking of. A number of other smaller roles, however, involved an acting style frequently that I think is appropriate to live-action children's shows. Including at times Chukwudi Iwuji, apologies, I'm probably mispronouncing that name, who played the High Evolutionary. There were times where he wasn't cartoonish throughout or anything like that, but he would have these moments where he burst out in this emotional rage that just felt a little overdone here and there. I guess if I really felt like his performance was chilling in other scenes, then those outbursts maybe would have been more effective and made me feel more, on the edge, or like pushed back or whatever. Off balance, that's the phrase I was looking for. But instead, I just don't like what he's going for here. It just seems too overdone. Despite this movie briefly containing some of the most realistic emotional acting in the Guardians trilogy, the general performance styles did not connect with me. As far as the stunts and visuals, standard MCU quality at best, I think, and possibly a little cheaper looking in some shots. There were multiple blue screen moments that looked noticeably less realistic to me than some premium streaming shows blue screen shots do, or green screen, sorry. And at other times it was merely on par with other streaming show quality visual effects. It makes me wonder if it was rushed or if the budget was cut. It just strikes me as further potential evidence that Disney is in trouble and just doesn't know what they should be prioritizing to fix the problem that they find themselves in. Now, I have no idea. Let me get to themes, because there is one very valuable thematic aspect to this movie that I want to touch on. I don't know how intentional it was on the part of the writing, but and I suppose this is, maybe you could infer some kind of spoilers from this, but I'm going to not be specific at all. But what this movie says to me is that in the view of the writing, a happy ending does not require everything to be happy. There can be some bittersweetness to it. And more importantly, a happy ending or a resolution to a story does not, or satisfying resolution to a story, does not require romantic coupling up. In fact, blood family relationships, sibling, parent, grandparent, those kinds of relationships, along with found families as well, which of course Guardians has been a model of throughout the trilogy. So that's not as noteworthy that they would value that again here. But blood family relationships and those connections being valued as the foundation for the positive resolution of the story, I think is noteworthy and valuable. While marriage is wonderful, an overemphasis on romantic coupling and on sexual relationships in entertainment has, I think, contributed to the many broken avenues of romantic and sexual fulfillment that so many explore in order to feel like a complete human being. Feel like, well, I don't know, I don't understand what's going on with me sexually, or why I'm not finding someone in my life, and so let me explore this, let me do this, let me try this, because I think a lot of the pervading thought is, if I don't couple up in my life, I'm broken. My life is not fulfilling my purpose. Things like that. I think I'm not talking about cause, but I'm saying that I think that there is a way in which entertainment has contributed to and kind of enabled and encouraged that kind of broken thinking about the nature of our purpose in life and what we're here to be and to do. Jesus never entered into marriage or romance, and he was the most complete human to ever live. So even as we honor and celebrate marriage, the single life dedicated to God's purposes, to family, and to church life is just as complete and worth honor and celebration. And Guardians 3, I think, is very compatible with that outlook. So I was glad to see that. Okay, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, skip. No need to prolong this by saying any more. Just skip. It's rated PG-13 for intense sequences of violence and action, strong language, suggestive/drug references, and thematic elements. And those are all of my thoughts for now on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. As always, I'd love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can find out about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/Spirit Blade Productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.